What's up, everybody? This is Ruben here. Another episode. I don't know if you saw the posting I did, but basically all of these videos and everything, for the most part, if they're going to be over 5 or 6 minutes, they're going to be on Spotify and iTunes. It's called the Ghetto Eagle Podcast. It's going to be updated all the time. It's a pretty simple process. It's brought to you by Anchor. Anchor made it so easy to be able to post these podcasts in or these videos in podcast form. So I'm going to put the links in there. So if you're interested in hearing what I have to say when I talk about sports or these observations of different things, check it out. It's on podcast, iTunes. It's on Spotify. If you like Spotify, check it out. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. The cool thing about that whole app thing is just so easy to upload. I don't have to kill my whole day trying to figure out how to upload that. So anyways, that being said, today I want to talk about, this is going to be a little bit longer. Today I want to talk about this whole Call Her Daddy podcast show that there's been a lot of controversy. So if you're not familiar with it, this is these two girls from New York who started a podcast on the Barstool Sports network. This guy named Dave, who's the CEO of the company. So when they first started, they talked about, just to break it down real quick, right? This is an issue of negotiation and contracts, but I think that the Call Her Daddy debacle is about relationships that you have that are business related, right? So what happens is, let's get down to brass tacks, right? You have two girls and they do this podcast together, and they start exploding. They come out, it just explodes, right? They come from nowhere. They're very entertaining. They click every, they check every box in the kind of rule of entertainment. They're beautiful, they're smart, they're witty, they're aggressive, their timing is on. They put out a lot of content, and they partnered up with a network that helped push them and help them succeed, right? So initially the issue was nothing, right? They needed a job. They got into the entertainment business, and so now they signed a 3-year deal. Initially it was like 75, 85 grand the next year, then 100 grand the year after that each, right? But you say, well, that's a lot of money. Yeah, okay, it is, right? But when this is basically, they've become like the number one podcast behind Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan Experience, and they basically have catapulted to the top, right? And their unique way of editing, where it's action, so they make an hour-long podcast. So the benefit of this is you can sell a lot of ads, you get a lot of attention to your website, to your podcast. You got a lot of eyeballs on this podcast, right? They're doing very well. So then, like anything else happens, right, they want more money, right? So then, of course, Dave, the owner of Barstool Sports, where basically this podcast is housed, and the intellectual property, the IP they call it, is owned by Dave and Barstool Sports, right? So these girls are essentially employees of Barstool Sports. So, and it's kind of a traditional thing. It happens a lot. There's a lot of podcast networks. There's a lot of companies that invest in a ton of podcasts, because it's like, let's say if you're a company that has major sponsors and you have 40 podcasts that you have under your belt, now you have sponsors that you can kind of push to a lot of different genres, right? Like if you have a sports podcast, you have a politics podcast. So these networks are starting to buy up all these podcasts. They pay them good money. Of course, it's all subjective, right? It's your opinion of how much these girls should have been paid or not paid, right? What's the right or the wrong of the whole deal, right? So the biggest issue that I look at when I look at this podcast, when I look at this debacle, so eventually, okay, so then I'm just going to go over it briefly, right? So in case you're not familiar with it, so she wanted more money. One of the girls wanted more money. They're going to get more money, right? But they were getting raises. One of the girls, now here's the thing. One of the girls took a raise because she was doing all the editing and spending time doing the editing. And so she started getting more money, but she stopped. She didn't tell her partner, who they were in everything 50-50, that she was getting more money, okay? So there's the basis for that, the deception, right? So they go on and they do very well with this podcast. They're blowing up, merch sales, alcohol, you name it, they're doing it, right? It's a legitimate show, right? So you think of all these shows that have happened in this manner, and you say to yourself, okay, you have this giant success. Now everybody's going to be in your ear telling you what you should do. You're not being paid enough, so forth and so on. So they sign a 3-year deal. Year 1 goes away. They're in the middle of year 2, and then everything starts coming unraveled, right? So Barstool Sports, the CEO of Barstool Sports, Dave, he rubs people the wrong way a lot of times, right? He's just a rough character. I'm sure he's a good guy. He's obviously a successful businessman, but it seems that when the whole negotiation for if they're going to be able to ask for more money, so forth and so on, is getting derailed because of something aside from money. And the reason why I say that is so one of the girls, you know, they ask for this outrageous amount of money, right? And then of course the CEO, Dave of Barstool Sports, says, no way, you're out of my mind, I'm not giving you all that money, right? So there's a pushback, right? Now, to Dave's defense, he owns this network, he owns this podcast network, and it is his job to shut it down. It is your job to get the talent for the lowest possible price, so when you sell ads against these shows, you can make the biggest profit. There's nothing wrong with that idea, right? So this idea that the Barstool Sports CEO Dave is disingenuous to this idea of paying these girls, he is not. That is the way normal course of business operates, and there's nothing wrong with this idea that he was trying to get them at the lowest rate, right? So the way it goes with anything else, you're a rookie, you have no platform, nobody knows you. Yes, you're very talented, but it takes people to take a chance on you so that you can get exposure and you can become somebody. You can become something in entertainment. That's the way it works. That's the way in business works. It's like that all over the place. We look at this and they say, well, they're making so much money for them. Yes, the way it works is your first deal in anything in life, you're not proven, nobody knows you. So how is it the expectation is that they're supposed to pay you after just 1 year? Just like you blew up, you can fizzle out, right? Now you're obligated to this giant contract. You're obligated to all this money that you owe these people, and they've only done it for 1 year, right? So then one of the things is they wanted their intellectual property. They wanted the call her daddy, basically the whole environment, you know, the fans, the Instagram, so forth and so on, right? So of course, the owner of Barstool Sports is like, you're crazy. Now that your podcast is number 1 essentially behind Joe Rogan, who by the way is going to Spotify, so he's not even going to be on the iTunes charts anymore. So this podcast is poised to be number 1. So what typically happens is everybody puts a bug in there and says, you need to earn more money. You know, they get shamed into this idea that they're worth more, which they are worth more. However, the way that they went about doing it, there was 100 mistakes that happened. Number 1, the biggest mistake is that one girl that didn't tell her business partner that she was getting additional money, and creates the divide right there, right? That show only works with those 2 people. It's like, if you want to compare this idea, the Joe Rogan experience only works with Joe Rogan. That's the way it works. There's no other way around it. The Joe Rogan experience has value because of Joe Rogan. The Call Her Daddy podcast, which is immensely popular, only is successful because there's 2 people it's those 2 girls that make that whole thing popular, right? One person by themselves could be entertaining and could be popular, it could work, but when you put the 2 girls that are number 1, like I said, they check all the boxes. They're beautiful, they're smart, they're funny, they're witty, they're talented. They know how to do the show. They're pacing. They know how to ask questions. They know how to get a laugh and make things intriguing. They're both doing it. That's what made their show number 1. It's not because they did it in fragments or one person's better than the other. The editing was great, and that one girl should have said something. The one girl that said that she didn't say that she was getting more money, that's the first sign of the divide. That this Dave from Barstool Sports, he kind of did that in a way to kind of divide the group, so that way they can make them feel like maybe they don't deserve as much money. It's a common tactic that people do in business, where it's like you want to devalue what's really valuable, right? So you don't want to tell them, oh, you guys are great, we want to give you more money. They'll give you a little bit more money, but then there's, you know, in regular negotiations, that's a negotiating tactic. You know, all that's fair, right? So then that's the first mistake, right? The second mistake is the other girl that got basically lied to, her boyfriend got involved in the whole mix of this negotiating thing, right? So obviously he's looking at what they're going through from the lens of a boyfriend from this other girl's kind of storyline, right? She's creating the storyline and he's eating it up. And so he gets involved and he complicates the whole mix, right? And so they're putting out shows, they're still doing well, everything's going good. Now there's starting to be a little bit of bitterness, distrust, disdain, jealousy. Why? So, and then for them to think that she's not getting any more money, the money becomes an issue, right? So rightfully so, you get into entertainment so you can, because it's what you like doing, but there is it's a reasonable expectation for you to ask for yourself to get paid for what you're doing, right? If people are entertained by you and people like hearing you talk or perform or speak and everything, it is not disingenuous to ask for you to be compensated accordingly, right? That's what a lot of people hire agents for, because they're not comfortable with doing that part of it. There's something about these creators that they limit themselves. They're not comfortable with asking for money. It's something about their personality that maybe, plays into that whole situation, right? But however, so getting back to the subject here, so you're starting to have more distress and more, people are starting to be more disingenuous to each other, and then there's this weird rift in it, right? So then when they go up and they're like, we want to get paid more money, let's go ask for this outrageous amount. And so the one girl already doesn't like Dave. Their personal relationship with Dave, the CEO of Barstool Sports, it has become tattered in a way because he's rubbed her the wrong way. So to his detriment, he should have been able to recognize this and understand that this is that we've not only gave them a chance, he recognized that they were talented, but you now have to cultivate that relationship with those girls, and you have to understand that yes, you are going to ask for no more money, and it's only natural, but the way that they think about him in his reactions, it almost seems like a childish type of mentality. Now, maybe that's what has got him a ton of money. Maybe that has what got him a lot of success. And I'm not taking anything away from the guy. But now that you've got the talent, it is your job to keep it. It is your job to secure it. Get the next contract and the next contract and the next contract. Of course, these girls have exploded, and they should have pushed back this idea that, look it, you want a giant deal, we'll give you the giant deal, but just use out your 3-year deal. We'll restructure at the end of the deal. Then we'll go from there. We'll up everything and we'll change the terms. You have obviously in the 3 years have exploded, become the number one podcast in the world, basically, or the country, or the United States. And you deserve more money. Absolutely. So instead of that, in 18 months or in 20 months, they've destroyed their idea of this show. So you've exploded, you've done well. Now, Barstool Sports, their management team, it's their job to be able to deal with these transitional periods, right? You're supposed to be able to cultivate your talent, and you're supposed to be able to set up an environment where these people can keep going. You've destroyed this podcast that it's not going to be the same, and now you're trying to salvage it with this girl, with one girl in the thing, and it's just like it's not going to be viable. They need to just start a whole new show, abandon it, move on, or just not be in entertainment anymore. So you've destroyed your opportunity by the bad timing of asking for money in conjunction with the bad management style of Dave from Barstool Sports, not understanding where he's at with this whole situation and letting his ego get involved in there, and this thing was artificially basically exploded, right? So Dave should have done a way better job in cultivating this idea. If he right away he's seen that this stuff was blowing up, you say to yourself, I'm going to take advantage of this. Yes, Barstool Sports has notoriety because it's connected to this podcast that's number one essentially, but now it's all going to get flamed out. The girl's going to do a podcast on her own, and she's going to separate herself. All the fans have to jump over. They had giant momentum, and they basically self-sabotaged themselves because everybody was greedy, right? That one girl, and then that one girl gets on the one that lied about, and I'll link her video, so if you want to take a look at it, you can. It was a very interesting play on it, and if you look at the way that she broke it down, there's obviously issues with divide there. People were, Dave started recognizing that she wanted to move forward, and so they go back and forth, get back and forth. He starts making concessions. It's never enough. The other girl has a huge issue with all this other stuff. And so what happens? Ultimately, nobody has a show. Nobody's making podcasts. Nobody's making money. It's going to scare away advertisers. Advertisers like consistency, right? If you post every single day and you talk about the same exact thing and you're the same exact person, then guess what? You're going to get exposure. You're going to have the ability to attract advertisers, right? This volatile situation that they are all now part of, it's not going to be conducive to anything else. Now, this is how you remedy it, right? This is my solution to the whole thing, is they need to both take 2 weeks off. Relax, take 2 weeks off, and they all need to get in the room and agree that they all deserve more money, okay? Nobody's disagreeing with that idea, right? But agree that they all need more money and come to some kind of agreement that they can work on, that it will up the ante for everybody else. And quite frankly, the one girl that kind of sabotaged the whole thing, where she was being lied to, and I guess that kind of rubbed her the wrong way. It doesn't seem like she has a high opinion of Dave from Barstool Sports. Like, it seems like that's where the disconnect is. So it'd be interesting if they would have an episode where they all kind of air out their gripes and their angers, because they've already made this so public, right? So it would be interesting if they aired it out and they made it public. They went on the air, they kind of trashed the CEO. He has to be able to take it. I think part of one thing is the CEO's ego is giant, and he needs to kind of, I don't want to say humble himself, but put himself in the situation where it's like, let's keep going. You want a big deal, I'll give you a big deal. You want your intellectual property, I don't know if I want to give that to you, because you're just gonna disappear on me. And even though I put a lot of money, effort, advertising, it's only fair that I ask that maybe you give me 2 or 3 more years and then you can move on, right? And then, that's not being disingenuous to the system here. It's not being disingenuous at all. The disingenuous aspect of it is this idea that you're not supposed to ask for more money and that you're supposed to let this guy have all this intellectual property. It's kind of crazy if you really think about the whole deal, right? They all need to settle down. Let's take a couple weeks off. Don't say nothing on social media. That's how I would fix it. Dave, all 3 of them need to do a podcast together, air it all out, call each other some bad words, talk shit to each other, say why you're mad, and move on. And it's a very entertaining podcast. Those girls are very entertaining, and they have an opportunity here to do something great. So anyways, if you like this video, like, subscribe, tell me what you guys think. This is going to be on Spotify and iTunes, and it's going to be up on YouTube and Facebook. Tell me what you guys think. Talk to you guys later. Bye.